Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Those of you who just arrived, a hearty welcome. Those of you who are joining online, thank you very much. We're continuing with our reading of the fourth canto of the Srimad Bhāgavatam. We're up to chapter 9, and we'll be starting where we left off at the lunch break, which will be text number 64. Correct? 63. Correct. 63. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Nitai Namineche Namirhate Shadamulyena Dite Chere Nitai Namineche Namirhate Shadamulyena Dite Chere Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. The king's residence was surrounded by gardens wherein there were varieties of trees brought from the heavenly planets. And in those trees there were pairs of sweetly singing birds and almost mad bumblebees who made a very relishable buzzing sound. Purport. In this verse, the word amara drumai, with trees brought from the heavenly planets, is very significant. The heavenly planets are known as Amar Lok, the planets where death is very much delayed. Because the people there live for 10,000 years according to the calculations of the demigods, in which our 6 months are equal to 1 day. The demigods live in the heavenly planets for months, years, and tens of thousands of years according to demigod time. And then again, after the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they fall down again to this earth. These are the statements that can be collected from the Vedic literature. As the people there live for 10,000 years, so also do the trees. Of course, here on this earth, there are many trees which live for 10,000 years. So what to speak of the trees on the heavenly planets? They must live for more than many 10,000s of years, and sometimes, as practiced even now, some valuable trees are taken from one place to another. It is also stated that when Lord Krishna went to the heavenly planets with his wife Satyabhama, he took a parijata tree from heaven and brought it to the earth. There was a fight between Krishna and the demigods due to the parijata trees being taken from heaven to this planet. The parijata was planted in the palace of Lord Krishna, which was occupied by Queen Satyabhama. The flower and fruit trees in the heavenly planets are superior, for they are very pleasant and tasteful, and it appears that in the palace of Mahārāja Uttanapada there were many varieties of such trees. Narada had given Rukmini a single flower from the parijata, and Satyabhama then was miffed. So to appease her, Krishna took her on a tour when he went to kill Bhaumasura of the heavenly planets and took a whole tree, because that's what it took to appease her. And at that time, Rukmini wasn't the least bit disturbed that Satyabhama got a tree and she got one flower. 64. There were emerald staircases which led to lakes full of variously colored lotus flowers and lilies, and swans, karandavas, chakravakas, cranes, and similar other valuable birds were visible in those lakes. Purport. It appears that the palace was not only surrounded by compounds and gardens with varieties of trees, but there were small man-made lakes also, where the water was full of many colorful lotus flowers and lilies, and to get down to the lakes there were staircases made of valuable jewels such as emeralds. By the beautifully positioned garden houses there were many luxuriant birds such as swans, chakravakas, karandavas, and cranes. These birds generally do not live in filthy places like crows. The atmosphere of the city was very healthy and beautiful, and it can simply be imagined from its description. 65. The saintly king Uttanapada, hearing of the glorious deeds of Dhruva Mahārāja, and personally seeing also how influential and great he was, felt very satisfied, for Dhruva's activities were wonderful to the supreme degree. Purport: when Dhruva Mahārāja was in the forest executing his austerities, his father Uttanapada heard everything about his very wonderful activities. Although Dhruva Mahārāja was not only the son of a king, but was only 5 years old, he went to the forest and executed devotional service under strict austerity. Therefore his acts were all wonderful, and when he came back home, naturally, because of his spiritual qualifications, he became very popular amongst the citizens. He must have performed many wonderful activities by the grace of the Lord. No one is more satisfied than the father of a person who is credited with glorious activities. Mahārāja Uttanapada was not an ordinary king. He was a Raja Rishi, a saintly king. Formerly this earth was ruled by one saintly king only. Kings were trained to become saintly. Therefore they had no other concern than the welfare of the citizens. These saintly kings were properly trained, and as mentioned in Bhāgavatam also, the science of God, or the yoga system of devotional service, known as Bhāgavatam, was spoken to the saintly king of the sun planet, and gradually it descended through the Kshatriya kings who were generated from the sun and the moon. If the head of the government is saintly, certainly the citizens not only become saintly, but they are very happy, because both their spiritual and physical needs and hankerings are satisfied. 66. When after concentration, King Uttanapada saw that Dhruva Mahārāja was suitably mature to take charge of the kingdom, and that his ministers were agreeable, and the citizens were also very fond of him, he enthroned him as emperor of this planet. Purport: although it is misconceived that formerly the monarchical government was autocratic, from the description of this verse it appears that not only was King Uttanapada a Rajarshi, but before installing his beloved son Dhruva on the throne of the empire of the world, he consulted his ministerial officers, considered the opinion of the public, and also personally examined Dhruva's character. Then he installed him on the throne to take charge of the affairs of the world. When a Vaishnava king like Dhruva Mahārāja is the head of the government of the entire world, the world is so happy that it is not possible to imagine or describe. Even now, if people would all become Krishna conscious, the democratic government of the present day would be exactly like the kingdom of heaven. If all people became Krishna conscious, they would vote for persons who are of the category of Dhruva Mahārāja. If the post of chief executive were occupied by such a Vaishnava, all the problems of satanic government would be solved. The youthful generation of the present day is very enthusiastic in trying to overthrow the government in different parts of the world. Unless people are Krishna conscious like Dhruva Mahārāja, there will be no appreciable changes in government, because people who hanker to attain political position by hook or by crook cannot think of the welfare of the people. They are only busy to keep their position of prestige and monetary gain. They have very little time to think of the welfare of the citizens. Text number 67. After considering his advanced age and deliberating on the welfare of his spiritual self, King Uttanapada detached himself from worldly affairs and entered the forest. Purport: this is the sign of a Rajarshi. King Uttanapada was very opulent and was emperor of the world, and these attachments were certainly very great. Modern politicians are not as great as kings like Mahārāja Uttanapada, but because they get some political power for some days, they become so much attached to their positions that they never retire unless they are removed from their posts by cruel death or killed by some opposing political party. It is within our experience that the politicians in India do not quit their positions until death. This was not the practice in olden days, as it is evident from the behavior of King Uttanapada. Immediately after installing his worthy son Dhruva Maharaj on the throne, he left his home and palace. There are hundreds and thousands of instances like this in which kings in their mature age would give up their kingdoms and go to the forest to practice austerity. Practice of austerity is the main business of human life. As Maharaj Dhruva practiced austerity in his early age, similarly his father, Maharaj Uttanapada, in his old age also practiced austerity in the forest. It is, however, not possible in modern days to give up one's home and go to the forest to practice austerity. But if people of all ages would take shelter of the Krishna consciousness movement and practice the simple austerities of no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, and no meat eating, and chant the Hare Krishna mantra regularly, 16 rounds, by this practical method it would be a very easy task to get salvation from this material world. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhāgavatam, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Returns Home. Bravo! Sadhu, sadhu! Haribo! Chapter 10. Dhruva Maharaj's fight with the Yakṣas. The great sage Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, thereafter Dhruva Maharaj married the daughter of Prajapati Shishumar, whose name was Brahmi, and 2 sons named Kalpa and Vatsara were born of her." Purport: it appears that Dhruva Maharaj married after being installed on the throne of his father, and after the departure of his father for the forest for self-realization. It is very important to note in this connection that since Maharaj Uttanapada was greatly affectionate towards his son, and since it is the duty of a father to get his sons and daughters married as quickly as possible, why did he not get his son married before he left home? The answer is that Maharaj Uttanapada was a Rajarshi, saintly king. Although he was busy in his political affairs and duties of government management, still he was very anxious for self-realization. Therefore, as soon as his son Dhruva Maharaj was quite worthy to take charge of the government, he took this opportunity to leave home, just like his son, who, without fear, left home for self-realization, even at the age of 5 years. These are rare instances from which we can see that the importance of spiritual realization is above all other important work. Maharaj Uttanapada knew very well that to get his son Dhruva Maharaj married was not so important that it should take preference to his going away to the forest for self-realization. 2. The greatly powerful Dhruva Maharaj had another wife named Ila, who was the daughter of the demigod Vayu. In her he begot a son named Utkala and a very beautiful daughter. Dhruva Maharaj's younger brother, Uttama, who was still unmarried, once went on a hunting excursion and was killed by a powerful Yakṣa in the Himalayan mountains. Along with him, his mother Suruchi also followed the path of her son. She died. 4. When Dhruva Maharaj heard of the killing of his brother Uttama by the Yakṣas in the Himalayan mountains, being overwhelmed with lamentation and anger, he got on his chariot and went for victory over the city of the Yakṣas, Alakapuri. Dhruva Maharaj, as becoming angry, overwhelmed with grief, and envious of the enemies, was not incompatible with his position as a great devotee. It is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry envious or overwhelmed by lamentation. Dhruva Mahārāja was the king, and when his brother was unceremoniously killed, it was his duty to take revenge against the Yakṣas from the Himalayas. Dhruva Mahārāja went to the northern direction of the Himalayan range. In a valley he saw a city that was full of ghostly persons who were followers of Lord Shiva. Purport: in this verse it is stated that the Yakṣas are more or less devotees of Lord Shiva. By this indication, the Yakṣas may be taken to be the Himalayan tribes like the Tibetans. Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, as soon as Dhruva Mahārāja reached Alakapuri, he immediately blew his conch shell, and the sound reverberated throughout the entire sky and in every direction. The wives of the Yakṣas became very much frightened. From their eyes it was apparent that they were full of anxiety. O hero Vidura, the greatly powerful heroes of the Yakṣas, unable to tolerate the resounding vibration of the conch shell of Dhruva Mahārāja, came forth from their city with weapons and attacked Dhruva. Dhruva Mahārāja, who was a great charioteer and certainly a great bowman also, immediately began to kill them by simultaneously discharging arrows at the rate of 3 at a time. When the heroes of the Yakṣas saw that all their heads were being thus threatened by Dhruva Mahārāja, they could very easily understand their awkward position, and they concluded that they would certainly be defeated. But as heroes, they lauded the action of Dhruva. Purport: this spirit of fighting in a sporting attitude is very significant in this verse. The Yakṣas were severely attacked. Dhruva Mahārāja was their enemy, but still upon witnessing the wonderful heroic action of Mahārāja Dhruva, they were very pleased with him. This straightforward appreciation of an enemy's prowess is a characteristic of real Kshatriya spirit. 10. Just like serpents who cannot tolerate being trampled upon by anyone's feet, the Yakṣas, being intolerant of the wonderful prowess of Dhruva Mahārāja, threw twice as many arrows, 6 from each of the soldiers, and thus they very valiantly exhibited their prowess. The Yaksha soldiers were 130,000 strong, all greatly angry and all desiring to defeat the wonderful activities of Dhruva Mahārāja. With full strength they showered various types of feathered arrows, parighas, iron bludgeons, nistunksas, swords, prashashulas, tridents, parashvadas, lances, shaktis, pikes, rishtis, spears, and bauchundi, weapons, upon Mahārāja Dhruva, along with his chariot and charioteer. Dhruva Mahārāja was completely covered by an incessant shower of weapons, just as a mountain becomes covered by incessant rainfall. Purport: Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out in this connection that although Dhruva Mahārāja was covered by the incessant arrows of the enemy, this does not mean that he succumbed in the battle. The example of a mountain peaks being covered by incessant rain is just suitable, for when a mountain is covered by incessant rain, all dirty things are washed from the body of the mountain. Similarly, the incessant shower of arrows from the enemy gave Dhruva Mahārāja new vigor to defeat them. In other words, whatever incompetency he might have had was washed away. 14. All the siddhas from the higher planetary systems were observing the fight from the sky, and when they saw that Dhruva Mahārāja had been covered by the incessant arrows of the enemy, they roared tumultuously, "The grandson of Manu, Dhruva, is now lost!" They cried that Dhruva Mahārāja was just like the sun, and that now he had set within the ocean of the Yakṣas. Purport: in this verse, Manava is very significant. Generally this word is used to mean human being. Dhruva Mahārāja is also described here as Manava. Not only is Dhruva Mahārāja a descendant of Manu, but all human society descends from Manu. According to Vedic civilization, Manu is the lawgiver. Even today, Hindus in India follow the laws given by Manu. Everyone, therefore, in human society is a Manava, or descendant from Manu. But Dhruva Mahārāja is a distinguished Manava because he is a great devotee. The denizens of the planet Siddhaloka, where the residents can fly in the sky without airplanes, were anxious over Dhruva Mahārāja's welfare in the battlefield. Srila Rupa Goswami says, therefore, that a devotee is not only well protected by the Supreme Lord, but all the demigods and even ordinary men are anxious for his security and safety. The comparison given here that Dhruva Mahārāja appeared to merge in the ocean of the Yakṣas is also significant. When the sun sets on the horizon, it appears that the sun drowns in the ocean, but factually the sun has no difficulty. Similarly, although Dhruva appeared to drown in the ocean of the Yakṣas, he had no difficulty. As the sun rises again in due course at the end of night, so Dhruva Mahārāja, although he might have been in difficulty, because, after all, it was a fight, and in any fighting activities there are reverses, that did not mean that he was defeated. 15. The Yakṣas, being temporarily victorious, exclaimed that they had conquered Dhruva Mahārāja. But in the meantime, Dhruva's chariot suddenly appeared, just as the sun suddenly appears from within foggy mist. Here Dhruva Mahārāja is compared to the sun and the great assembly of the Yakṣas to foggy mist. Fog is insignificant in comparison with the sun. Although the sun is sometimes seen to be covered by fog, in fact the sun cannot be covered by anything. Our eyes may be covered by a cloud, but the sun is never covered. By this comparison with the sun, the greatness of Dhruva Mahārāja in all circumstances is affirmed. 16. Dhruva Mahārāja's bow and arrows twanged and hissed, causing lamentation in the hearts of his enemies. He began to shoot incessant arrows, shattering all their different weapons, just as the blasting wind scatters the assembled clouds in the sky. The sharp arrows released from the bow of Dhruva Mahārāja pierced the shields and bodies of the enemy, like the thunderbolts released by the King of Heaven, which dismantle the bodies of the mountains. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, the heads of those who were cut to pieces by the arrows of Dhruva Mahārāja were decorated very beautifully with earrings and turbans. The legs of their bodies were as beautiful as golden palm trees. Their arms were decorated with golden bracelets and armlets, and on their heads there were very valuable helmets bedecked with gold. All these ornaments lying on that battlefield were very attractive and could bewilder the mind of a hero. Purport: it appears that in those days soldiers used to go to the battlefield highly decorated with golden ornaments and with helmets and turbans, and then when they were dead, the booty was taken by the enemy party. Their falling dead in battle with their many golden ornamental dresses, was certainly a lucrative opportunity to the heroes on the battlefield. 20. The remaining Yakṣas, who somehow or other were not killed, had their limbs cut to pieces by the arrows of the great warrior Dhruva Mahārāja. Thus they began to flee, just as elephants flee when defeated by a lion. Dhruva Mahārāja, the best of human beings, observed that in that great battlefield not one of the opposing soldiers was left standing with proper weapons. He then desired to see the city of Alakapuri, but he thought to himself, no one knows the plans of the mystic Yakṣas. In the meantime, while Dhruva Mahārāja, doubtful of his mystic enemies, was talking with his charioteer, they heard a tremendous sound, as if the whole ocean were there, and they found that from the sky a great dust storm was coming over them from all directions. Within a moment, the whole sky was overcast with dense clouds, and severe thundering was heard. There was glittering electric lightning and severe rainfall. My dear faultless Vidura, in that rainfall there was blood, mucus, pus, stool, urine, and marrow falling heavily before Dhruva Mahārāja, and there were trunks of bodies falling from the sky. Next, a great mountain was visible in the sky, and from all directions hailstones fell, along with lances, clubs, swords, iron bludgeons, and great pieces of stone. Dhruva Mahārāja also saw many big serpents with angry eyes, vomiting forth fire and coming to devour him, along with groups of mad elephants, lions, and tigers. Then, as if it were the time of the dissolution of the whole world, the fierce sea with foaming waves and great roaring sounds came forward before him. The demon Yakṣas are by nature very heinous, and by their demoniac power of illusion they can create many strange phenomena to frighten one who is less intelligent. When the great sages heard that Dhruva Mahārāja was overpowered by the illusory mystic tricks of the demons, they immediately assembled to offer him auspicious encouragement. All the sages said, "Dear Dhruva, O son of King Uttanapada, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Shraṇgadhanus, who relieves the distresses of his devotees, kill all your threatening enemies. The holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord himself. Therefore, simply by chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord, many men can be fully protected from fierce death without difficulty. Thus, a devotee is saved." Purport: the great rishis approached Dhruva Mahārāja at a time when his mind was very perplexed due to the magical feats exhibited by the Yakṣas. A devotee is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his inspiration only, the sages came to encourage Dhruva Mahārāja and assure him that there was no danger because he was a soul fully surrendered to the Supreme Lord. By the grace of the Lord, if a devotee can simply chant his holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, at the time of death, then he immediately surpasses the great ocean of the material sky and enters the spiritual sky. He never has to come back for repetition of birth and death. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can surpass the ocean of death. So Dhruva Mahārāja was certainly able to surpass the illusory, magical feats of the Yakṣas, which, for the time being, disturbed his mind. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th Canto, 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhāgavatam, entitled Dhruva Mahārāja's Fight with the Yakṣas. Bravo! Bravissimo! Sadhu, sadhu. Chapter 11. Swayambhuva Manu advises Dhruva to stop fighting. Sri Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, when Dhruva Mahārāja heard the encouraging words of the great sages, he performed the achmana by touching water and then took up his arrow, which was made by Lord Narayan, and fixed it upon his bow." Purport: Dhruva Mahārāja was given a specific arrow made by Lord Narayan himself, and he now fixed it upon his bow to finish the illusory atmosphere created by the Yakṣas. As it is stated in the Bhagavad-gītā, Mame veye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite, Bhagavad-gītā 7.14. Without Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no one is able to overcome the action of the illusory energy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also given us a nice weapon for this age, as stated in the Bhagavatam, Sangopangastra. In this age, the Narayanastra, or weapon to drive away Maya, is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra in pursuance of the associates of Lord Chaitanya, such as Advaita, Prabhu, Nityananda, Gadadhar, and Srivas. 2. As soon as Dhruva Mahārāja joined the Narayanastra arrow to his bow, the illusion created by the Yakṣas was immediately vanquished, just as all material pains and pleasures are vanquished when one becomes fully cognizant of the self. Purport: Krishna is like the sun, and Maya, or the illusory energy of Krishna, is like darkness. Darkness means absence of light. Similarly, Maya means absence of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness and Maya are always there, side by side. As soon as there is awakening of Krishna consciousness, all the illusory pains and pleasures of material existence are vanquished. Mayametam tarantite. Constant chanting of the Maha Mantra will keep us always aloof from the illusory energy of Maya. 3. Even as Dhruva Mahārāja fixed the weapon made by Narayan Rishi onto his bow, arrows with golden shafts and feathers like the wings of a swan flew out from it. They entered the enemy soldiers, with a great hissing sound, just as peacocks enter a forest with tumultuous crowing. Those sharp arrows dismayed the enemy soldiers, who became almost unconscious, but various Yakṣas on the battlefield, in a rage against Dhruva Mahārāja, somehow or other collected their weapons and attacked. Just as serpents agitated by Garuda rushed toward him with upraised hoods, so all the Yakṣa soldiers prepared to overcome Dhruva Mahārāja with their upraised weapons. When Dhruva Mahārāja saw the Yakṣas coming forward, he immediately took his arrows and cut the enemies to pieces. Separating their arms, legs, hands, and bellies from their bodies, he delivered the Yakṣas to the planetary system, which is situated above the sun globe, and which is attainable only by first-class brahmacharis who have never discharged their semana. Purport: to be killed by the Lord or by his devotees is auspicious for non-devotees. The Yakṣas were killed indiscriminately by Dhruva Mahārāja, but they attained the planetary system, which was only attainable for brahmacharis who had never discharged their semana. As the impersonalist jnanis, or the demons who are killed by the Lord, attain Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, so persons who are killed by a devotee of the Lord also attain Satyaloka. To reach the Satyaloka planetary system described here, one has to be elevated above the sun globe. Killing, therefore, is not always bad. If the killing is done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, or in great sacrifices, it is for the benefit of the entity killed in that way. Material so-called non-violence is very insignificant in comparison to killing done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees. Even when a king or the state government kills a person who is a murderer, that killing is for the benefit of the murderer, for thus he may become cleared of all sinful reactions. An important word in this verse is urdhva-retasa, which means brahmacharis who have never discharged semana. Celibacy is so important that even though one does not undergo any austerities, penances, and ritualistic ceremonies prescribed in the Vedas, if one simply keeps himself a pure brahmachari, not discharging his semana, the result is that after death he goes to the Satyaloka. Generally, sex life is the cause of all miseries in the material world. In the Vedic civilization, sex life is restricted in various ways. Out of the whole population of the social structure, only the grahastas are allowed restricted sex life. All others refrain from sex. The people of this age especially do not know the value of not discharging semana. As such, they are variously entangled with material qualities and suffer an existence of struggle only. The word urdhva-retasa especially indicates the Mayavadi sannyasis who undergo strict principles of austerity. But in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that even if one goes up to Brahmaloka, he again comes back. Abrahma bhumna loka punar avartino arjuna. Bhagavad Gita 8.16. Therefore, actual mukti or liberation can be attained only by devotional service, because by devotional service one can go above Brahmaloka or to the spiritual world, wherefrom he never comes back. Mayavadi sannyasis are very proud of becoming liberated, but actual liberation is not possible unless one is in touch with the Supreme Lord in devotional service. It is said, Harim vina na sritim taranti. Without Krishna's mercy, no one can have liberation. When Swayambhuva Manu saw that his grandson Dhruva Mahārāja was killing so many of the Yakṣas who were not actually offenders, out of his great compassion he approached Dhruva with great sages to give him good instruction. Purport: Dhruva Mahārāja attacked Alakapuri, the city of the Yakṣas, because his brother was killed by one of them. Actually, only one of the citizens, not all of them, was guilty of killing his brother Uttama. Dhruva Mahārāja, of course, took a very serious step when his brother was killed by the Yakṣas. War was declared, and the fighting was going on. This sometimes happens in present days also. For one man's fault, a whole state is sometimes attacked. This kind of wholesale attack is not approved by Manu, the father and lawgiver of the human race. He therefore wanted to stop his grandson Dhruva from continuing to kill the Yaksha citizens who are not offenders? And now we'll take a few reflections or questions. Yes, Krishna Saka.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Guru
Krishna.
Maharaj. I was in the prayers of Dhruva Maharaj, it was said Dhruva Maharaj is praying that I am mad for hearing and chanting the glories of you from your pure devotees. And even Prahlad Maharaj prays when he is face to face to the Lord that he wants the service of spiritual master. So is it the right understanding that, I was first of all feeling very fortunate that these great devotees, pure devotees are in face to face with the Lord, but they are asking to hear the glories from pure devotees and to serve the spiritual master. So I was feeling very fortunate that even before, seeing the Lord, before being present with Him, I'm able to hear the glory. So is it the right understanding that it is better? This is higher than even seeing the Lord face to face.
Krishna says in the 11th canto of the Bhāgavatam, mat-bhaktyā pūjābhyadhikā. Better than worshipping me is worshipping my devotees. Then in the story of Śrutadeva and Bāhulāśva, Krishna goes on a chariot with the great sages to visit these two devotees. Śrutadeva is poor and Bāhulāśva is a wealthy king. Krishna then expands himself so he can go to both their houses at the same time. But not only does he expand himself, but he also expands all the sages too. So they all go in different directions, but it's the same entourage and the same Krishna. At the house of Bāhulāśva, he gives him a royal reception, washes his lotus feet, and he hears from Krishna, he worships him, does ārati. At Śrutadeva's house, same thing. But he gives him simpler accouterments, just a little place to sit and some water. And Śrutadeva especially was glorifying Krishna with elaborate prayers and effusive prayers, I should say. And Krishna stopped him. And he said, all these sages are here. Better if you glorify them. You're over-glorifying me in the presence of these sages. So this theme continues throughout the Bhāgavatam. It's based on Aradhanam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param Tasmat Parataram Devi Tadyanam Samachara. The Aradhanam, Param Aradhanam, the highest method of worshiping Krishna is to worship those things that are dear to him. And there's, as Krishna himself says in the Bhagavatam, there's no one more dear to me than the devotees. So Prabhupada put it simply, love me, love my dog. Another question? Yes? 1, 2.
One reflection and one question. So reflection is that
Yes.
I was just appreciating how Prabhupada's genius in the last chapter, when in the purport he himself was answering many questions like why does Suruchi is kind of going and Suruchi was why Suruchi came to in the chariot, or why Suruchi many things that Prabhupada was telling in the purport, answering the questions himself. So I was just seeing his genius in the answering the things that can be in our common people's thought after reading translation. He was answering. I noticed that in many places a question may be asked, like he starts with that.
Right. Yeah, good point.
And the question I had that like one of the themes that you told from Dhruva Maharaj, we can take like I will sow that. Like that is the one theme.
I'll show them.
I'll sow them. Yeah. So how can we like in mode of goodness we can apply that? Because we saw also that like later Dhruva Maharaj lamented about that why he has that kind of attitude, I will sow them, and but we know that it can have some application in Krishna consciousness. I was wondering what is the right application of that in Krishna consciousness, I will sow them principle.
Dhruva. It gave him determination. When Swesve Adhikaryanishta Saguna Parikirtita, Krishna says to Uddhava in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhāgavatam, everyone has an adhikari, or a certain level that they're acting on now. And he said to act according to one's adhikari is a guna, means a good thing, a good quality. Viparyata doshasyad. If you try to be something you're not, then he said it's a fault. It's not that we should deliberately try to have some obscure or misplaced motivation. But whatever motivation we have, I was just quoting Einstein saying this afternoon where he said, just as when you're riding a bicycle, in order to keep balance, you have to keep moving. So in any activity, you have to keep moving. And if you have a kind of motivation that's not perfectly aligned yet in devotional service, but somehow or other that keeps you moving, then one of the themes of this whole story is that it's going to be okay. What's more, it's completely, it's given by Śrukadeva Goswami as one of the main themes of the Bhāgavatam, which is kama sarva kama va moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. And that is, he says, you may be without any desires, you may be full of desires, or you may just want liberation, but still you should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what are you going to do? Because that's the position you're in right now. Okay, we got Chakadola and then Damodar Vamsidhari Prabhu. Oh, I said Chakadola. I'm sorry. Shriyanta Riksha. Excuse me.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So, in the 10th chapter, 4th verse, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, it is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious or overwhelmed by lamentation. So I understand angry and overwhelmed by lamentation, but how do we understand a devotee getting envious?
Well, Prabhupada explains that when you see somebody doing better service than you, then you may feel a little motivation, but it's not, it has no inebriety, Prabhupada says. It's not tainted. There's a way that you feel, oh, look what great service this person is doing. I'm such a schlep because I'm not doing anything like that. So let me rise up and do like that person's doing. But it's not like material envy, where we want the other person to fail. We want them to succeed, but we also feel that pinch that, let me rise to the occasion also. That's the kind of envy that Prabhupada describes as being transcendental envy. All right. Damodar Prabhu, welcome. Thank you for coming.
I think I've read this canto a few times, but today Uttan Pratji became the hero. What Srila Prabhupada mentions that, typically we delay stuff, we deprioritize spiritual progress in lieu of my kids are small, marriages has to be performed, education has to be done, I have to take care of this, I have to take care of that. He did not thought any of those things. He was very focused and amazing hero from our lineage. Yeah. So rightful son of Manu, showing example. Unfortunately, I was very moved by how he is setting an example, and we should talk more about Uttan Pad. People talk about, he Dhruva sitting on his lap and all, but I think this is the main character of Uttan Pad, of showing it with example of, we get into the problem of unfinished tasks, but he is saying that those tasks are not relevant. Spiritual upliftment, self-realization is the largest task. So that was one observation. I think was the second part towards where it is, so I was just meditating on Narayanastra, and then Prabhupada in his super purports mentions Sangopastra, that how devotees, when they come together, that's chanting, simple reflections, meditation, holy names, simple holy names is more powerful than the Narayan Astra.
Yeah.
So those are two.
Yeah, good. Nice reflections. Outside, the Outside People's Party has a reflection.
Hare
The
Krishna.
Inside People's Party has one too. Go right ahead, Avadut.
Guru Maharaj, a question. And Dhruva Maharaj is fighting with the Yakṣas. In text 13, Prabhupada is writing that whatever incompetency he might have had washed away. And in one of your Make Japa Great Again sessions in Vrindavan, you were discussing this theory of unconscious incompetence and then conscious incompetence. I was hoping you could elaborate on that theory a little more.
Starts with unconscious incompetence. You're bad, but you don't know you're bad. That's really bad. And then by outside influence, by good association, you become consciously incompetent. That is, you start to realize that I'm not very good at this. Then, with practice, you become consciously competent. But then, with lots of practice and integrated into your lifestyle, then you become unconsciously competent. So there are many tasks that we do that we're not conscious of, but we're very competent in doing them. Is that the progression you wanted to hear? Yeah. And it's a miracle of the human form that you, as Prabhupada says, with two things, knowledge and practice, you can attain anything. If you set your mind on something and you have knowledge and practice, then it becomes part of you, and it's a new skill you can develop. Yes, Prabhu. Oh, I'm sorry. You were ready. Okay, go ahead, Pargarangi.
So my reflection is from the reading in the morning. Srila Prabhupada was explaining that the reason Suruchi and Dhruva's brother, they had to suffer, it was because Dhruva Maharaj felt like he took their offense. He had the feeling of revenge. So I was just reflecting that it's very important for devotees to practice forgiveness, because if they don't practice forgiveness, then the person who is offended or apparently offended them, they're going to suffer. So their suffering could have been decreased if he wouldn't have taken offense.
Good point. Let's call it into the ISKCON resolve. Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I just want to share this observation. Yeah, so controlling anger under provoking situations is an incredible weapon.
It's what?
It's an incredible weapon that can avoid...
Incredible what?
Weapon.
Weapon.
Yeah.
To control anger.
To control anger under provoking situations is an incredible weapon in itself, which can avoid so many havocs that we see from the Yakṣas incident, as well as the Dhruva killing Yakṣas. And Krodhavegam is actually a two-edged sword. Like we have to have an anger, but using the anger at the right time for the right situation isn't a great art in itself. And also I have one question. Dhruva Maharaj, who has seen the God face to face, still he could not control the Krodhavegam. And he was also told by God that your brother is going to die and your stepmother is going to die. So why he could not let it go rather than killing thousands of Yakṣas? I mean...
Well, that probably goes into it more in the following purports. And it's slightly ambiguous. Because on one side, Prabhupada will explain that it was his duty to do that. And on another side, he'll say that even though he's a pure devotee, there's a sense that there's some humanness in Dhruva, where, after all, it's his brother, it's extreme circumstances, and so forth. So I think you'll see what I mean when we read these further purports, the ambiguity of it. But that's sort of the human condition anyway. It's pure devotee, transcendental, but then we're still in the world. And there appears to be some conflict because of the way the world works. I mean, Queen Kunti says that there's always going to be, in human interaction, some sense of friction and conflict. And Prabhupada used to write it off also. When Trey Rishi wrote Prabhupada a letter, said, why are the leaders of the Krishna consciousness movement fighting amongst themselves? They seem to be not very spiritual. Prabhupada said, you're not very spiritual because you don't understand that actually we're all individuals eternally, and individuals have different ways of seeing things and so forth. Of course, at other times, he highly stressed the fact that cooperation is synonymous with bhakti. It's not just to say we should give in to Kṛṣṇa, but it's not exactly what's happening here. There's a sense of his duty and valor that's included, but there's also a sense that even if one is a devotee, one should be taking guidance from the superiors. Like Manu comes and says, I think that's about enough for now.
Thank you, Mahārāja.
Okay, last one, because we got to take our cow break.
Guru Maharaj, in one verse, Lord says, similar to what Prabhu is saying, that in the future your brother Uttama will go hunting in the forest, and while absorbed in hunting he will be killed. And it is said in the purport, Dhruva Maharaj came to the forest to search out the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a revenging spirit against his stepmother and brother. But so the question is here, so Lord fulfilled his revenging spirit desire. Is it like what here Lord says he will be killed? So was it by Lord, or was it the chance? I mean, was it his karma? I mean, was it by Lord he fulfilled his revenging desire which he had?
Krishna just tied up all the loose ends. Krishna tied up all the loose ends. In a sense that the pastime, as you heard it, was that even his stepmother came to greet him, and there was no sense of envy, and there was no sense of revenge at that time. Dhruva was already enlightened. It was just in the course of time, there's everyone comes to their fate, and to tie up loose ends and everyone goes in their particular direction by the Lord's arrangement. So his stepmother ended up burning in forest fire, but that can happen to anybody. But there is a sense there that, she was implicated. Some of these things are very complicated, just like in the Shamataka jewel, we find Akura, who's a pure devotee, and he ends up being complicit in the fiasco of the Shamataka jewel. And the acharyas all have different ideas about, why that happened and so forth. But it just goes to the convoluted nature of the world, but it's all resolved in the end. And that's one of the main themes of the Bhāgavatam, is it explores all the possible combinations and permutations of human psychology and interaction, and then resolves them in Krishna. And I think the point of Prabhupada's letter to Atreya Rishi was, don't be a Mayavadi. The idea of Atreya Rishi was everything should be shanti, shanti, shanti. No unharmonious, everything harmonious. Prabhupada said no. Even in the spiritual world, Krishna sometimes accidentally milks a bull instead of a cow because he's so bewildered by Srimati Radharani. Or he named other anomalies. He said sometimes the gopis, they put their clothes on wrong because they're so much in a hurry to see Krishna. So he said, are you going to criticize that? It's a world full of variety and a world full of individual conscious souls. So it's a wild scene. Anything can happen. Don't expect utopia. And that brings us to the cow break. Yay! We'll be back here. We'll come back here at 5, 10, 17 minutes after. See you in 17 minutes. At 17 minutes after. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing our reading of the Srimad Bhāgavatam. And we're reading from the 4th canto about Dhruva Mahārāja right now. And the chapter number is 11. And we're starting up where we left off the cow break at text number 7. Lord Manu said, "My dear son, please stop. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is the path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit by killing Yakṣas who are actually not offenders." Purport: in this verse, the word atiroshena means without, in this verse, the word atiroshena means with unnecessary anger. When Dhruva Mahārāja went beyond the limits of necessary anger, his grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, immediately came to protect him from further sinful action. From this we can understand that killing is not bad, but when killing is done unnecessarily, or when an offenseless person is killed, such killing opens the path to hell. Dhruva Mahārāja was saved from such sinful action because he was a great devotee. A Kshatriya is allowed to kill only for maintenance of the law and order of the state. He is not allowed to kill or commit violence without reason. Violence is certainly a path leading to a hellish condition of life, but it is also required for maintenance of the law and order of the state. Here Lord Manu prohibited Dhruva Mahārāja from killing the Yakṣas, because only one of them was punishable for killing his brother Uttam. All of the Yaksha citizens were not punishable. All of the Yaksha citizens were not punishable. What's yours say? Not all of the Yaksha citizens punishable. That's better. Yeah, it's fixed. We find in modern warfare, however, that attacks are made upon innocent citizens who are without fault. According to the law of Manu, such warfare is a most sinful activity. Furthermore, at the present moment, civilized nations are unnecessarily maintaining many slaughterhouses for killing innocent animals. When a nation is attacked by its enemies, the wholesale slaughter of the citizens should be taken as a reaction to their own sinful activities. That is nature's law. My dear son, the killing of the sinless Yakṣas which you have undertaken is not at all approved by authorities, and it does not befit our family, which is supposed to know the laws of religion and irreligion. My dear son, it has been proved that you are very much affectionate towards your brother and are greatly aggrieved at his being killed by the Yakṣas. But just consider, for one Yaksha's offense, you have killed many others who are innocent. One should not accept the body as the self and thus, like the animals, kill the bodies of others. It is especially forbidden by saintly persons who follow the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: the word sadhunam rishikeshanuvartinam are very significant. Sadhu means a saintly person. But who is a saintly person? A saintly person is he who follows the path of rendering service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishikesh. In the Narada Pancharatra it is said, Rishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. The process of rendering favorable service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with one's senses is called bhakti, or devotional service. Therefore, why should a person who is already engaged in the service of the Lord engage himself in personal sense gratification? Dhruva Mahārāja is advised here by Lord Manu that he is a pure servitor of the Lord. Why should he unnecessarily engage, like the animals, in the bodily concept of life? An animal thinks that the body of another animal is his food. Therefore, in the bodily concept of life, one animal attacks another. A human being, especially one who is a devotee of the Lord, should not act like this. Sadhu, a saintly devotee, is not supposed to kill animals unnecessarily. Text number 1211. It is very difficult to achieve the spiritual abode of Hari in the Vaikuntha planets, but you are so fortunate that you are already destined to go to that abode by worshipping him as the supreme abode of all living entities. Purport. The material bodies of all living entities cannot exist unless sheltered by the spirit soul and the supersoul. The spirit soul is dependent on the supersoul, who is present even within the atom. Therefore, since anything material or spiritual is completely dependent on the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Lord is referred to here as Bhutavasa. Dhruva Maharaj, as a Kshatriya, could have argued with his grandfather Manu when Manu requested him to stop fighting. But even though Dhruva could have argued that as a Kshatriya it was his duty to fight with the enemy, still he was informed that since every living entity is a residence of the Supreme Lord and can be considered a temple of the Lord, the unnecessary killing of any living entity is not permitted. 12. Because you are a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you, and you are also recognized by all his confidential devotees. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such an abominable task? Purport. Dhruva Maharaj was a pure devotee and was accustomed to always thinking of the Lord. Reciprocally, the Lord always thinks of those pure devotees who think of him only 24 hours a day. As a pure devotee does not know anything beyond the Lord, so the Lord does not know anything beyond his pure devotee. Swayambhuva Manu pointed out this fact to Dhruva Maharaj. You are not only a pure devotee, but you are recognized by all pure devotees of the Lord. You should always act in such an exemplary way that others may learn from you. Under the circumstances, it is surprising that you have killed so many faultless Yakṣas. 13. The Lord is very satisfied with his devotee when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. Purport. It is the duty of an advanced devotee in the second stage of devotional perfection to act in accordance with this verse. There are 3 stages to devotional life. In the lowest stage, a devotee is simply concerned with the deity in the temple, and he worships the Lord with great devotion, according to rules and regulations. In the second stage, the devotee is cognizant of his relationship with the Lord, his relationship with fellow devotees, his relationship with persons who are innocent, and his relationship with persons who are envious. Sometimes devotees are ill-treated by envious persons. It is advised that an advanced devotee should be tolerant. He should show complete mercy to persons who are ignorant and innocent. A preacher devotee is meant to show mercy to innocent persons whom he can elevate to devotional service. Everyone, by constitutional position, is an eternal servant of God. Therefore, a devotee's business is to awaken everyone's Krishna consciousness. That is his mercy. As for a devotee's treatment of other devotees who are his equals, he should maintain friendship with them. His general view should be to see every living entity as part of the Supreme Lord. Different living entities appear in different forms of dress, but according to the instruction of the Bhagavad-gītā, a learned person sees all living entities equally. Such treatment by the devotee is very much appreciated by the Supreme Lord. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person is always tolerant and merciful. He is a friend for everyone, never an enemy to anyone, and is peaceful. These are some of the good qualities of a devotee. 14. One who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during his lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions. Thus being freed from all material modes of nature, he achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. Purport. In the previous verse, it has been explained that one should treat all living entities with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. By such behavior, one satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and upon his satisfaction, the devotee immediately becomes free from all material conditions. The Lord also confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who sincerely and seriously engages in my service immediately becomes situated in the transcendental stage, wherein he can enjoy unlimited spiritual bliss. Everyone in this material world is struggling hard in order to achieve blissful life. Unfortunately, people do not know how to achieve it. Atheists do not believe in God, and certainly they do not please him. Here it is clearly said that upon pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one immediately attains to the spiritual platform and enjoys unlimited blissful life. To become free from material existence means to become free from the influence of material nature. The word samprasanne, which is used in this verse, means being satisfied. A person should act in such a way that the Lord is satisfied by the activity. It is not that he himself is to be satisfied. Of course, when the Lord is satisfied, the devotee automatically becomes satisfied. This is the secret of the process of bhakti yoga. Outside of bhakti yoga, everyone is trying to satisfy himself. No one is trying to satisfy the Lord. Karmis grossly try to satisfy their senses, but even those who are elevated on the platform of knowledge also try to satisfy themselves in a subtle form. Karmis try to satisfy themselves by sense gratification, and Gyanis try to satisfy themselves by subtle activities or mental speculation and thinking themselves God. Yogis also try to satisfy themselves by thinking that they can achieve different mystic perfections. But only devotees try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's process of self-realization is completely different from the process of the karmis, gyanis, and yogis. Everyone else is trying to satisfy himself, whereas the devotee tries only to satisfy the Lord. The devotional process is completely different from the others. By working to please the Lord, by engaging his senses in his loving service, the devotee is immediately situated on the transcendental platform, and he enjoys unlimited blissful life. Good, right? The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements, and thus everything, including the body of a man or a woman, is created of the 5 elements. By the sexual life of a man and a woman, the number of men and women in this material world is further increased. Purport. When Swayambhuva Manu saw that Dhruva Mahārāja understood the philosophy of Vaishnavism and yet was still dissatisfied because of his brother's death, he gave him an explanation of how this material body is created by the 5 elements of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also confirmed, prakrite kriyamanani. Everything is created, maintained, and annihilated by the material modes of nature. In the background, of course, there is the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Mayadhyakshena. In the 9th chapter, Krishna says, under my superintendence, material nature is acting. Swayambhuva Manu wanted to impress on Dhruva Mahārāja that the death of the material body of his brother was not actually the Yakṣas' fault. It was an action of the material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has immense varieties of potencies, and they act in different gross and subtle ways. It is by such powerful potencies that the universe is created, although grossly it appears to be no more than the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Similarly, the bodies of all species of living entities, whether human beings or demigods, animals or birds, are also created by the same 5 elements. And by sexual union they expand into more and more living entities. That is the way of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. One should not be disturbed by the waves of material nature in this process. Dhruva Mahārāja was indirectly advised not to be afflicted by the death of his brother, because our relationship with the body is completely material. The real self, spirit soul, is never annihilated or killed by anyone. Everyone okay? Yes. Outside People's Party? Okay. Manu continued. My dear King Dhruva, it is simply by the illusory material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by the interaction of the three modes of material nature that creation, maintenance, and annihilation takes place. Purport. First, creation takes place with the ingredients of the 5 elements of material nature. Then, by the interaction of the modes of material nature, maintenance also takes place. When a child is born, the parents immediately see to its maintenance. This tendency for maintenance of offspring is present not only in human society, but in animal society as well. Even tigers care for their cubs, although their propensity is to eat other animals. By the interaction of the material modes of nature, creation, maintenance, and also annihilation take place inevitably. But at the same time, we should know that all is conducted under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything is going on under that process. Creation is the action of the Rajoguna, the mode of passion. Maintenance is the action of Sattvaguna, the mode of goodness, and annihilation is the action of Tamoguna, the mode of ignorance. We can see that those who are situated in the mode of goodness live longer than those who are situated in the Tamoguna or Rajoguna. In other words, if one is elevated to the mode of goodness, he is elevated to a higher planetary system where the duration of life is very great. Urdvam gachanti sattvasta. Great rishis, sages, and sannyasis who maintain themselves in Sattvaguna, or the mode of material goodness, are elevated to a higher planetary system. Those who are transcendental even to the material modes of nature are situated in the mode of pure goodness. They attain eternal life in the spiritual world. 17. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is the remote cause of the creation of the material cosmic manifestation. When he gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced, and thus the whole universe moves, just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. Purport. How the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead works within this material world is explained in this verse. Everything is happening by the energy of the Supreme Lord. The atheistic philosophers who do not agree to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the original cause of creation think that the material world moves by the action and reaction of different material elements. A simple example of the interaction of elements occurs when we mix soda and acid, and the movement of effervescence is produced. But one cannot produce life by such interaction of chemicals. There are 8,400,000 different species of life with different wishes and different actions. How the material force is working cannot be explained just on the basis of chemical reaction. A suitable example in this connection is that the potter and the potter's wheel. The potter's wheel rotates and several varieties of earthen pots come out. There are many causes for the earthen pots, but the original cause is the potter who sets a force on the wheel. That force comes by his superintendence. The same idea is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Behind all material action and reaction there is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says that everything depends on his energy, and yet he is not everywhere. The pot is produced under certain conditions of action and reaction of material energy, but the potter is not in the pot. In a similar way, the material creation is set up by the Lord, but he remains aloof. As stated in the Vedas, he simply glanced over it, and the agitation of matter immediately began. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that the Lord impregnates the material energy with the part and parcel jivas, and thus the different forms and different activities immediately ensue. Because of the different desires and karmic activities of the jiva soul, different types of bodies in different species are produced. In Darwin's theory, there is no acceptance of the living entity as spirit soul, and therefore his explanation of evolution is incomplete. Varieties of phenomena occur within this universe on account of the action and reaction of the three material modes. But the original creator or the cause, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is mentioned here as nimitta matram, the remote cause. He simply pushes the wheel of his energy. According to the Mayavadi philosophers, the Supreme Brahman has transformed himself into many varieties of forms, but that is not the fact. He is always transcendental to the action and reaction of the material gunas, although he is the cause of all causes. Lord Brahma says, therefore, in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Paramat Krishna Sakchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. There are many causes and effects, but the original cause is Sri Krishna. Now we'll take a couple reflections or questions.
I have a reflection. Actually, I was when this last verse came up, I was thinking. I was reading Bhagavad Gita with someone follow-up, and they were saying that there are two great unknowns. One is like how, like when the living entity is born, how he become conscious. The other is like how that point when the creation started. That two unknowns. If that two unknowns are known, then everything else fits in the place. Then everything is known. But the two unknowns, the scientists don't know. Here, that potter's example was Srila Prabhupada were giving the example of the potter, that how there are different earthen pots, but it is created by the potter. So I was thinking of that.
Gurumat, I had a question about the phrase nimitta matram, because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, nimitta matram bhavasabhya sachi. So there we understand that the phrase nimitta matram means Krishna is telling Arjuna to become an instrument. But here we see the meaning of nimitta matram explained as a remote cause. So I was just trying to understand, like, how are they related, or are the same or the different?
Well, at the meaning of remote cause, you have to look at that, the remote cause. In other words, you're not the cause, but you're the remote cause because you're working for the cause. So if somebody picks up a shovel and digs, there's the cause, who's the shoveler, and then there's the shovel, that's the remote cause, because it's not really, the shovel's not digging, the man is, but you say, no, the shovel's digging. So it's a remote cause. So it's, as we also call, you can say it's an instrument. And that's the way it's defined in the Bhagavad Gita also. Be an instrument. Be the remote cause.
They basically mean the same.
Yeah. Prabhu? Yeah?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So we had this point on Rukmini and Satyabhama in the beginning of today's reading. So where Satyabhama was envious when Rukmini got a parijata, but when she got the whole tree, Rukmini was not affected. So since both of them are expansions of Radharani, this envy is for spiritual nature, right? I just wanted to understand.
Yeah, just last week we went to the temples of the Sakhis all around Vrindavan. And in each place, we brought a devotee with this Madhava Damodar. He lives in Vrindavan, and he would read the character of each one of the Sakhis. And they were described as, some of them are light, medium, heavy, as far as being contrarian. So Rukmini is known to be very fiery, and Satyabhama is very fiery, whereas Rukmini is very submissive. That comes out in the pastime where Krishna tries to get a rise out of her. He says, why'd you marry me in the first place? Like there were so many great kings, Shishupal and all those guys. They wanted to marry you. You should have married them. They got a lot more going than I do. I mean, who am I anyway? You made a mistake. And she fainted. And then he said, no, I'm sorry. I was just trying to get you angry. And she wouldn't get angry. And so for variety, in the spiritual world, every one of the devotees has a unique character. And so Prabhuji say variety is the mother of enjoyment. And in relationship, variety is the mother of enjoyment. So that's the rasa. It's their natures. So they're all expansions of Srimati Radharani, but they all have unlimited natures. So the earth is one thing, but it produces millions and billions of different kinds of flowers with different scents, right? So just because there's one origin, it doesn't mean there's not variety that comes from there.
One more follow-up question. So, because of Satyabhama's agitation, only Krishna went to the heavenly planets, and so we can understand in one sense that because Satyabhama did that, only she wanted to establish Krishna as a supreme Lord by creating this whole pastime. So, can we understand it in that sense that she's trying to?
If it's there in the commentary, you can. I mean, so if you can find out anything in the commentary, then it's fair game. You can say this or that. But other than that, we don't have to say anything else. One thing I can say is one of the other reasons he took her along was because he was going to kill Bhaumasura. And Bhaumasura is the child of Bhumi. Actually, it's Krishna's son. And Krishna, in the form of Varaha, when he lifted the earth, they conceived Bhaumasura. And so Bhumi made Krishna promise that if he ever was to slay that demon, that he'd get her permission first. So Bhumi is an expansion of Satyabhama. And therefore Krishna took her along partly because to go through the heavenly planets to get the tree, but also because he wanted to bring her to the front lines because she likes that kind of excitement. Krishna thought she'll like seeing the front line of the battle because that's her nature. But the other reason was because he knew he was to kill Bhaumasura, and he had to keep his promise, he would have to take permission from Bhumi. But because Bhumi is an expansion of Satyabhama, it was fine to get, obviously, the consent of Satyabhama, which she gave at the very last minute. Kill him. And you're like, hey. Prabhu?
Just one more detail about the story, which comes from Vishnu Purana about Satyabhama. When we hear, well, she was jealous and she just wanted a tree, but we don't know we should know that always the reason for pure devotees is whatever they do or desire is to please Krishna. So this jealousy is, of course, to please Krishna, but also when they went there, the Vishnu Purana describes, and she said, I want the whole tree, and Krishna, okay, takes it, and then Sachi and others, wives of Indra, what's this? We want our tree, this is only for... And then Indra is embarrassed, goes with all the demigods and the big fight, and then Krishna defeats them, and Indra goes submissively and starts praying and tells Satyabhama, okay, I give it to you. And she said, no, I'm light-hearted woman. I just desired it, but the actual reason was to glorify my husband. This is the only thing I want. So I wanted to see him defeating you and everybody, and his glory increases. So keep it. I don't want it. Keep it here. It's okay. But Indra, no, please, I want that you have it in your garden. And so it's back and forth, but she makes
that kind of answers your question. Yeah. So, yes? Point?
In the 14th verse of the 11th chapter, Prabhupada writes in the purport, the word samprasane, which is used in this verse, means being satisfied. A person should act in such a way that the Lord is satisfied by the activity. It is not that he himself is to be satisfied. Of course, when the Lord is satisfied, the devotee automatically becomes satisfied. And we sing every morning, Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada, Yasya prasadam nagati gutopi, that if the spiritual master is pleased, then the Lord is pleased. But for some devotees, there may be they might not have access to the spiritual master, or the spiritual master may not be present. So, in such circumstances, how do you know if you're actually pleasing the Lord?
Well, one thing, it's very practical, the way Prabhupada told Jayadvaita Swami on a morning walk, who asked about what it means that the spiritual master is perfect. Jayadvaita Maharaj said, so Prabhupada, sometimes we see like a pure devotee of the spiritual master, maybe he forgets a verse. Or, hey, he wears glasses. So how's that perfect? And then Prabhupada said, no, then they don't understand what it means by perfection. He said, he is fully engaged in spreading the Sankirtan movement. That is all, he concluded. And so in a practical way, if somebody receives service through the parampara, first of all, Prabhupada says in the second canto of the Bhāgavatam that the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a manifestation of his internal potency. And it is by that potency that one comes to see the Lord face to face. So it's very important that one take the instruction and the service that comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So where does it come from? We don't go directly to Krishna and get it, but it comes through the cyclic succession. So when you get a spiritual master who's engaged according to the order of his spiritual master, then you can get service from that person. So Prabhupada writes in the Adi Lila, first chapter, that in the physical absence of the spiritual master, the order of the spiritual master and the service that he's given becomes the pride and joy of the disciple. And it's through that one is, going back to the second canto, directly connected to Krishna through the order, which is a manifestation of the internal potency. So there's never any separation. But you can't make up your service. Of course, there are ways in which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave a general order. Yadi Dako Tahika Krishna Upadesh. It's an open order to everyone. Spread the Sankirtan movement. But when one takes service through the spiritual master coming down, then one becomes very intimately connected, because one has that assurance that one is doing authorized service. So there's never any separation. Yes, Prabhu.
This is a technical question, Maharaj. So, if we say that we worship Lakshmi Narayan here for Radha Krishna, so technically, Lakshmi Ji is a derivative of Radharani.
Right.
Correct? Yeah. And then, we have all this, the Parvati forms which are there, Durga, Parvati. Recently, there was this Navratra in India, where there are 9 forms of mothers which are so how do we place Lakshmi with those 9 forms? Because I saw there was a Lakshmi temple, and then they were celebrating the other part is Lakshmi is there in Jagannath temple as well as Subhadra, which is more of Durga. So that kind of thing I was thinking, like, what's the difference? Is Durga derivative also of Radharani?
Yeah. All the Shaktis come from Srimati Radharani. This is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So she's the original Shakti. Just as Krishna, the cowherd boy, Ete Chamsa Kalapum Sam Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam. All others are expansions from Krishna. So similarly, all the Shaktis expand from Srimati Radharani. So from Srimati Radharani, then you have the wives of Krishna in Dwarka, and then you have the Lakshmis in the Vaikuntha planets, and then when you cross over to the material world, as you read the Brahma Samhita, the first few verses, crisscross. Come into the material world, then you've got Durga, who's also an expansion of Srimati Radharani. Expansion and expansion and expansion. So they're all Shaktis that emanate originally from the Adi Shakti, who's Srimati Radharani.
When people are praying to a Shakti, because there comes then Lord Shiva, who is a devotee of Lord. And there's a Lord, well, because Lakshmi Ji is worship, serving the Lord itself. So just I'm intrigued by the Lakshmi versus it's like Subhadra versus Lakshmi. Like there's a sister and there's a wife in the same temple, and if they are derivatives of Radharani, then what is the because people are approaching for material benefits to Subhadra, apparently. And Lakshmi Devi also, they look for material benefits many times. So I was not very clear on their segmentation or the derivation.
Well, as we just read earlier, Shiva is Krishna, but connected to the material world. Almost the same, but a little different. And similarly, well, Shiva takes care of a lot of people who are ghostly. They're in a weird space. A lot of the people who are affected by the lower modes, somehow or other they get attached to Shiva, and Shiva helps to elevate them. And similarly, those who worship Durga, they're in a particular mentality, so they're attracted in that way. But as you find in the Bhāgavatamrita, the first incident of receiving mantra for Gopakumar is that he gets it through his Durga deity. The family worships Durga. And then all of a sudden he has a dream. And Shiva confirms it, that, yeah, here's your mantra, and it's a Gopal mantra. So they're all the same person, but just manifested. Ego Bahusham, there's one person, but expands in unlimited varieties of forms. And as far as in the temples and the modes of worship. So as an example, in our temples, where when you have Radha and Krishna, we don't put Gaurnitai on the same altar because of the awkwardness between the older brother of Krishna and his relationship with Srimati Radharani. That's a very internal type of understanding, but there are combinations and permutations of these different rasas, and they're considered in the deity worship. And as far as the ways of the history behind which deities are on the altar in Jagannath Puri and how they're worshipped and so forth, that's a matter of the details of, that temple. The Madhavananda goes into a lot of those types of things. It's like, oh, it was like this, and then that happened in this past time, to explain all those things. Okay, let's do a few more verses. Here we are at text number 18. Well, and again, we're on the chapter named Swayambhuva Manu Advises Dhruva Mahārāja. It's a quite unusual chapter, isn't it? Because here we have the great heroes returned, the pure devotees celebrated, and then all of a sudden you have Swayambhuva Manu saying, like, hey, you did the wrong thing. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable supreme energy, time causes the interaction of the three modes of material nature. I'll read it again. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable supreme energy, time, causes the interaction of the three modes of material nature, and thus varieties of energy become manifest. It appears that he is acting, but he is not the actor. He is killing, but he is not the killer. Thus it is understood that only by his inconceivable power is everything happening. Purport: the word durvibhavya means inconceivable by our tiny brain, and vibhakta virya means divided in varieties of potencies. This is the right explanation of the display of creative energies in the material world. We can better understand the mercy of God by an example. A government state is always supposed to be merciful, but sometimes, in order to keep law and order, the government employs its police force, and thus punishment is meted out to the rebellious citizens. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always merciful and full of transcendental qualities, but certain individual souls have forgotten their relationship with Krishna and have endeavored to lord it over material nature. As a result of their endeavor, they are involved in varieties of material interaction. It is incorrect to argue, however, that because energy issues from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is therefore the actor. In the previous verse, the word nimitta matram indicates that the Supreme Lord is completely aloof from the action or reaction of this material world. How is everything being done? The word inconceivable has been used. It is not within the power of one's small brain to comprehend unless one accepts unless one accepts the inconceivable power and energy of the Lord, one cannot make any progress. The forces which act are certainly set up by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is always aloof from their action and reaction. The varieties of energies produced by the interaction of material nature produce the varieties of species of life and their resultant happiness and unhappiness. How the Lord acts is nicely explained in the Vishnu Purana. Fire is situated in one place, while the heat and light produced by fire act in many different ways. Another example given is that of the electric powerhouse. The electric powerhouse is situated in one place, but by its energies, many different types of machinery move. The production is never identical with the original source of the energy, but the original source of energy, being the prime factor, is simultaneously one and different from the product. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya's philosophy, Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva, is the perfect way to understanding. In the material world, the Lord incarnates in three forms, as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, by which he takes charge of the three modes of material nature. By his incarnation of Brahma, he creates. As the incarnation of Vishnu, he maintains, and by his incarnation of Shiva, he also annihilates. But the original source of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, is always apart from these actions and reactions of material nature. 19. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever existing in the form of time. He is the killer of everything. He has no beginning, although he is the beginning of everything, nor is he ever exhaustible, although everything is exhausted in due course of time. The living entities are created through the agency of the Father, and they are killed through the agency of death, but he is perpetually free of birth and death. Purport: the supreme authority and inconceivable power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be minutely studied from this verse. He is always unlimited. That means that he has no creation or end. He is, however, death in the form of time. As described in Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna says, I am death. I take everything away at the end of life. Eternal time is also without beginning, but it is the creator of all creatures. The example is given of touchstone, which creates many valuable stones and jewels, but does not decrease in power. Similarly, creation occurs many times. Everything is maintained, and after a time, everything is annihilated. But the original creator, the Supreme Lord, remains untouched and undiminished in power. The secondary creation is made by Brahma, but Brahma is created by the Supreme Godhead. Lord Shiva annihilates the whole creation, but at the end he is also annihilated by Vishnu. Lord Vishnu remains. In the Vedic hymns it is stated that in the beginning there's only Vishnu and that he alone remains at the end. An example can help us to understand the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. In a recent history of warfare, the Supreme Personality of Godhead created a Hitler, and before that a Napoleon Bonaparte, and they each killed many living entities in war. But in the end, Bonaparte and Hitler were also killed. People are still very much interested in writing and reading books about Hitler and Bonaparte and how they killed so many people in war. Year after year, many books are published for public reading regarding Hitler's killing thousands of Jews in confinement. But no one is researching who killed Hitler. But no one is researching who killed Hitler and who created such a gigantic killer of human beings. The devotees of the Lord are not much interested in the study of the flickering history of the world. They are interested only in He who is the original creator, maintainer, and annihilator. That is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in this feature of eternal time is present in the material world and is neutral toward everyone. No one is his ally and no one is his enemy. Within the jurisdiction of the time element, everyone enjoys or suffers the result of his own karma or fruit of activities. As when the wind blows, small particles of dust fly in the air, so according to one's particular karma, one suffers or enjoys material life. Purport: although the Supreme Personality of God is the original cause of all causes, He is not responsible for anyone's material sufferings or enjoyment. There is no such partiality on the part of the Supreme Lord. The less intelligent accuse the Supreme Lord of being partial and claim that this is why one enjoys in this material world and another suffers. But this verse specifically says there is no such partiality on the part of the Supreme Lord. Living entities, however, are never independent. As soon as they declare their independence of the Supreme Controller, they are immediately put into this material world to try their luck freely as far as possible. When the material world is created for such misguided living entities, they create their own karma, fruit of activities, and take advantage of the time elements, and thereby they create their own fortune or misfortune. Everyone is created, everyone is maintained, and everyone is ultimately killed. As far as these three things are concerned, the Lord is equal to everyone. It is according to his karma that a person suffers and enjoys. The living entity's higher or lower position, his suffering and enjoying, are due to his own karma. The exact word used in this connection is anisha, which means dependent on their own karma. The example is given that the government gives everyone the facilities for governmental action and management. But by one's own choice, he creates a situation which obliges him to exist under different types of consciousness. The example given in this verse is that when the wind blows, particles of dust float in the air. Gradually lightning occurs, and then torrents of rain follow, and thus the rainy season creates a situation of varieties in the forest. God is very kind. He gives everyone an equal chance, but by the resultant actions of one's own karma, he suffers or enjoys in the material world. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is all-powerful, and he awards the results of one's fruit of activities. Thus, although one living entity's duration of life is very small, whereas that of another is very great, he is always in his transcendental position, and there is no question of lessening or increasing his duration of life. Both the mosquito and Lord Brahma are living entities in the material world. Both are minute sparks and are part of the Supreme Lord. The very short duration of life of the mosquito and the very long lifetime of Lord Brahma are both awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the results of their karma. But in the Brahma Samhita we find it said, Karmani nirdahati, the Lord diminishes or vanquishes the reactions of devotees. The same fact is explained in Bhagavad Gita, Jagnartat Karmanonyatra. One should perform karma only for the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Lord. Otherwise one is bound by the action and reaction of karma. Under the laws of karma, a living entity wanders within the universe under the rule of eternal time, and sometimes he becomes a mosquito, and sometimes Lord Brahma. To a sane man, this business is not very fruitful. Bhagavad Gita 9:25, gives a warning to the living entities. Yanti deva vrta devan. Those who are addicted to the worship of the demigods go to the planets of the demigods. And those who are addicted to the worship of the pitas, forefathers, go to the pitas. Those who are inclined, I wonder what the planets of the demigods are like. I just wonder what the planets of the demigods are like. They must be really into that particular demigod there, the whole planet. Huh? But there's so many demigods. They must all have their little cult going on somewhere. Little t-shirts. Those who are inclined to material activities remain in the material sphere, but persons who engage in devotional service reach the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where there is neither birth nor death, nor different varieties of life under the influence of the law of karma. The best interest of the living entity is to engage himself in devotional service and go back home, back to Godhead. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur advised, "My friend, you are being washed away in material nature's ways of time. Please try to understand that you are the eternal servant of the Lord, then everything will stop and you will be eternally happy." Maya jale baddha hoye, achomi che kajloge, eko no chaitanya peye, radha madhav nam bolore, nam gai. Gaura madhushvare nam gai. Gaura madhushvare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 22. The differentiation among varieties of life and their suffering and enjoyment is explained by some to be the result of karma. Others say it is due to nature, others due to time, others due to fate, and still others say it is due to desire. Purport: there are different types of philosophers: mimamsakas, atheists, astronomers, sexualists, and so many other classifications of mental speculators. The real conclusion is that it is our work only that binds us within this material world in different varieties of life. How these varieties have sprung up is explained in the Vedas. It is due to the desire of the living entity. Do we start a nursery here or something? This is the first time I ever heard a baby crying around here. The living entity is not a dead stone. He has different varieties of desire or kama. The Vedas say kama, karashit. The living entities are originally parts of the Lord, like sparks of fire, but they have dropped to this material world, attracted by desire to lord it over nature. That is a fact. Every living entity is trying to lord it over the material resources to the best of his ability. This kama or desire cannot be annihilated. There are some philosophers who say that if one gives up his desires, he again becomes liberated. But it is not at all possible to give up desire, because desire is a symptom of the living entity. If there were no desire, then the living entity would be a dead stone. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore advises that one turn his desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then desire becomes purified. And when one's desires are purified, he becomes liberated from all material contamination. The conclusion is that the different philosophers' theory to explain the varieties of life and their pleasure and pain are all imperfect. The real explanation is that we are eternal servants of God, and that as soon as we forget this relationship, we are thrown into the material world, where we create our different activities and suffer or enjoy the result. We are drawn into this material world by desire, but the same desire must be purified and employed in the devotional service of the Lord. Then our disease of wandering in the universe under different forms and conditions will end. Last chance for reflections or questions from inside or out. Yes, Dhruva. Jagannath. 474.
In two places, I think, I got the realization that Srila Prabhupada really mentions that there's so many distractions within this material world, so many things that can detract us from our Krishna consciousness, or that can, take up our time. One was in 19, it says the devotees of the Lord are not much interested in the study of flickering history of the world. They are interested only in Him who is the original creator, maintainer, and annihilator. And then we just read in this last verse, I believe, that the real conclusion is that it is our work that binds us within this material world in different varieties of life. So just a nice reminder for Srila Prabhupada to really pay attention to what we surround ourselves with, what we engage ourselves in, and what we do with our time, and to make sure it's most useful in the advancement of our Krishna consciousness and devotional service.
Well said, and well done by you. Gets out of college, gets on a flight, and comes to Vrindavan to stay absorbed in hearing and chanting in some room out in the middle of Govardhan. Thank you. Dhruva, yeah. This is your chapter. Your canto, yes.
I have this realization that Dhruva Maharaj asked that I need a better position than my father, grandfather and great-grandfather. And in one lifetime only Krishna fulfilled the three desires. He gave the position of his father, the kingdom of his father for 36,000 years. Then when he fought with the Yakṣas, then the grandfather came to convince him, like he was submitting his request to forgive the Yakṣas, and gave the Dhruva lok, which is better than the Brahma lok. So,
well, why did you put in the part about when Manu came to talk to him? How does that relate?
Manu was a grandfather of Dhruva Maharaj.
Yeah, but I was just going with the part where you said he wanted to supersede, and then he received it all in one life.
He came to request to Dhruva Maharaj. So in this way, he was requesting to Dhruva Maharaj, means that Dhruva Maharaj is in better position than him.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Srila, I really loved this point, that how Srila Prabhupada is so much protective about his disciples. Like yesterday, Srila Prabhupada was mentioning that these caste brahmanas, they say that only if they take birth in India, or if they take birth in a brahmana family, then only they are eligible for the initiations. Like Shruti told Dhruva Maharaj that you have to take birth from my womb, then only you will be able to sit on the position of the throne. But Krishna is so merciful that in that lifetime only, Dhruva didn't have to take birth from the womb of Shruti. And similarly, Prabhupada and this movement is so merciful and purifying that they don't have to take birth in the caste brahmanas or something like that. And now they are even better than the brahmanas.
Yeah, Prabhupada was unwavering in his support for his disciples when outsiders attacked them. As an example, in one conversation, a man was telling Prabhupada that at one of the Gaudiya mats during Janmashtami, the leader of the mat was criticizing ISKCON, and he had a newspaper article about something that happened in Japan, and that some of the devotees had been deported. And so then one of the devotees who had been connected with Japan happened to be there at the time. He said, but Prabhupada, it wasn't like that. And then Prabhupada said, that is all right. He said, so he told the story that there were two men, they were talking, and one said, I have lost 10,000. And then the other one said, well, I didn't have 10,000 to lose. So you're in a better position than me. And then he said, flies seek source, whereas bees seek honey. He said, so this person who was criticizing, first of all, at least we were in Japan to be kicked out, he said. And then he said that he's only a fault finder. He's a pamara. He's like a low-class person. So he said, did you tell him that? He said, no, I didn't tell him anything. He said, so you do one thing. You go back and you say, excuse me, sir, I forgot to tell you one thing. He said, what is that? He said, you are a Pāmara. And in another morning walk, Prabhupada had that argument with that. He argued a lot with, what's his name? Who's Dr. Patel, yeah. And one day Dr. Patel was saying to the devotees, oh, well, I've read that in Sanskrit. I read it in the Sanskrit. And one of the devotees was, well, do you mean you understand it better because you read it? And he was, a little indignant because of the way Patel had sort of attacked and the way Prabhupada had given us the books in English and so forth. But Prabhupada intervened and say, no, it's okay. They can understand everything without knowing the Sanskrit. And there's a pattern. He always would intervene and stand up for his devotees in those circumstances when people tried to criticize them. Oh, the last one I had in mind was that one of his disciples, Prabhupada's disciples, had cooked, and one of his godbrothers was visiting. I know which one it was, but I won't say. And then he said, I won't eat the prasadam because it was cooked by mlecha. And then later on, when this godbrother came to Prabhupada and he asked him for a donation or a loan, Prabhupada said, well, this is all right, but it had been collected by these mlechas, so it's better if we don't give it to you because you become contaminated. So he was always right there, standing up for his followers, which is a very endearing quality. You have time for one more? Yes, Gopal. Oh, Madhva, yes, please.
Dhruva Maharaj, he had wished for a planet bigger than his great-grandfather Brahma. So the planet that Dhruva Maharaj has is one star that we can see. Is it bigger than the universe? Because we can see it and we're in the universe.
I don't know the size of it, actually. We can look it up. Somebody can do the research. Who am I looking at? Everyone's looking away. Well, not me, man. We'll research and see if it's mentioned in the 5th canto how big Dhruvaloka is. It's a transcendental planet though, because the Lord lives there. Okay, last one for Gopal Champu. Oh, and the Outside People's Party has a delegate outside the door.
I was appreciating where Prabhupada was talking about Hitler. Mm-hmm. And what I was appreciating about it is how Prabhupada was so situated in the absolute truth that he just saw past all this fluff and whatever the buzz of what history may be presenting. Like, for example, like the moon landing. Prabhupada was just like, no, it didn't happen. Like, he was just like so clear. And it was been mentioned a couple of times how through Prabhupada's purports is training our intelligence to also see the world in that way and proceed past it.
Yeah, and another point related to that is sometimes people cherry pick from Prabhupada's books and they'll take one point or another and then say, aha, let's see, Prabhupada's a racist or he thought like this. But the real fact is that he was categorically critical of the material world. Anything within that is encompassed by the material world is bad, and everything that's transcendental to the material world is good. So everything's fair game. And you can see from statements like this, because other places people said, well, he said something about Hitler. He likes Hitler. It's like, he doesn't like Hitler. It's ridiculous. He doesn't like any nonsense in the material world. So, part of the lesson is that one has to have a comprehensive understanding of Prabhupada's teachings. Do you have a point from outside? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us online from various places. Is anybody there? 17 devotees. Hare Krishna. Thanks for joining. And thanks for all of you who took the trouble to come be part of the live studio audience. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadeva, if you so desire, please instill in us the determination of Dhruva Maharaj to spread the Sankirtan movement and smash our goals. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna!
Gaur Premanande. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Panchagopadrishcha kripasindabhevacha patitanam pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Gaur Premanande. Namam Ishvaram Satchidananda Rupa Lasat Kundalam Gokule Rajamanam Yashoda Viyalukaladavamana Param Vrishtam Atyanta Todrucha Gopya Rudantam Mohurnetra Yugmam Rijanta Karamboja Sat Suchusakam Patri Rekanka Kanta Sita Graivadamodaram Bhaktivadam Iti Driksalilabi Ananda Kunde Swagoshami Majanta Akyapayantam Tadiye Shitageshu Bhaktir Jivatam Natastam Shatam Ritivande Varam Deva Mokshama Samvadimba Nachangam Vrini Tema Purnata Gopala Valam Sadame Madastya Vailam Inam Te Mukamboja Tantanilae Vitam Kundalai Snigda Tasha Gopya Tustum Vitam Bimba Raktada Manastya Virasta Namo Deva Damodananda Prasida Prabhu Muchita Bhakti Bhajati Tacha Bhakti Sakami Namokshiga Homestida Namaste Sudhamne Sudha Diya Priyaya Namo Nanta Nilaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Rama Rama Hare Hare, Gaura Premananda